Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is going to decide which foreign troops can join an international peacekeeping force in Gaza. The U.S. will not be sending soldiers, but is asking countries like Indonesia, the UAE, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and others to contribute. Well, joining me now from the Washington stand is Casey Harper. Casey, what is the latest on Israel's position as it relates to foreign troops joining their mission in Gaza?
Yeah, Jody. Well, this has been a very contentious issue, as you might imagine. Who's going to get to have troops in Israel's backyard? Well, according to Israeli officials, forces from countries that are hostile to Israel will not be allowed. You might say that's obvious, but it hasn't been obvious up until this point. Now, Azerbaijan and Indonesia, they appear well positioned to lead the new Gaza force after Israel went ahead and vetoed Turkey's involvement, which is not a major surprise, but coordination on this is still in the early stages, and Indonesia is insisting that this whole operation actually get UN Security Council approval. That could be complicated. Now, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, while speaking today in Budapest, he said that Israel firmly rejects any Turkish involvement in the proposed international force.
Turkey, led by Erdogan, led hostile approach against Israel, included not only hostile statements, but also diplomatic and economic measures against Israel. So it is not reasonable for us to let their armed forces enter to Gaza Strip, and we will not agree to that, and we said it to our American friends.
There's no surprise there, as Turkey's been no friend to Israel in recent years. But this U.S. plan, backed by President Trump, it calls for foreign troops to secure this fragile ceasefire that did end 2 years of fighting between Israel and Hamas earlier this month. Of course, tensions between Israel and Turkey remain high, as Turkey has sharply condemned Israel's military campaign in Gaza. And you probably remember, Jody, that the Turkish president actually blocked Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu from coming to that international peace summit where the deal was signed.
Yes, I do remember that. Casey, what about the president's trip now to Asia? I know there's a lot of attention on that. What's the latest that you have in that measure?
Yeah, that's right, Jody. All eyes are on the president as he's in Asia, and he says he's confident the U.S. will reach a strong deal with China. He says, hey, both sides want to make a deal, and we're going to get it done ahead of his meeting with Xi Jinping later this week.
I think we're going to have a deal with China. We meet, as you know, in South Korea with President Xi. I think we're going to have a good deal with China, and they want to make a deal, and we want to make a deal.
We'll see if it happens. But U.S. and Chinese officials, they've already agreed on a framework for talks, which take on issues like tariffs, rare earth minerals, fentanyl, and TikTok. But the truce in the trade war is set to expire November 10th, which means that new tariffs could kick in if progress stalls on that deal. Meanwhile, at a summit in Malaysia, Trump also signed several trade and mineral deals with Southeast Asian nations, and he got behind Malaysia's mediation of that Thailand-Cambodia peace accord. The president's calling it a golden age for America and the Pacific, Jody.
Casey, there's so much happening in this Asia trip right now, so much at stake. But one of the things that we've been following here is how China recently has been going after religious leaders, churches, raiding churches and pastors' homes, some 30 or so pastors here recently. And of course, here at Family Research Council, we're praying for all our persecuted brothers and sisters in the faith in China and around the world. But do you think President Trump is going to be addressing this with President Xi?
You know, it's one of those things that could come up. I think President Trump has shown himself to be someone who's focused on the economics first and on peace first, and to put some of those other values second to that. He's been willing to work with countries like Turkey and Qatar, which might have, questionable things going on. He hasn't blinked an eye at some of, Russia's issues as well. He wants to make a deal with everyone. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it came up, but it doesn't appear right now that is front and center of the president's trip, Jody.
What about back home here? The government shutdown continues to be prime news all over the place. And we're hearing some reports that everyday Americans could soon be facing some more hardships. We played a clip of House Speaker Johnson just a little earlier on that. What's the latest on all this political deadlock?
Yeah, that's right, Jody. We're on day 27 of this seemingly never-ending government shutdown, and the Senate Democrats, led, of course, by Chuck Schumer, are continuing to block that Republican measure that would simply reopen the government. House Speaker Mike Johnson, he's taking them to task for that. He says Democrats are holding the government hostage and causing real harm for working Americans.
Because just like they decided to save their own skin, that they had to endorse the Marxist Mandami in an unprecedented move, they have also decided they had to shut down the government in an unprecedented move. No matter the pain it inflicts upon hardworking American people, they were simply more afraid of the Marxists in their party than they are of voters. For the sake of our country, we pray that their calculation is wrong. We believe it is dead wrong.
And the pain is only going to get worse, Jody, as USDA is warning that food benefits for 41 million people will stop on November 1st if the shutdown continues. And in states like New Mexico, that could be as many as 1 in 5 residents who lose benefits. So Republicans are sticking by their message. They say, hey, the solution's clear. Pass our bill, end the shutdown, put Americans first, Jody.
Well, Casey, thank you so much for these updates. I know we'll be talking to you a little bit later in the program, but thank you for joining us.